Okay, William L. Benson Jr., 81 years old now, born in Cambridge, New York, on a hilltop, not on a mountaintop, at the hospital there, and started traveling when I was 6 weeks old because my dad was in the newspaper business. We went all over the country. Then later on, after the Depression and everything, we settled in Buffalo, New York. At the time of my entrance into the Army, I was, I just finished Bennett High School, 18 in May, and graduated from Bennett, and was working part-time and also voluntarily at the Buffalo Zoo as a herpetologist, and had been working under Marlin Perkins' tutorage for a while. And then he left, and then I worked just a little bit of the summer and then was inducted. I knew I was going to be inducted either, or I would have joined up, because we were all gung-ho in those days with the war going on. Went into Buffalo to take my physical, and then went to Fort Dix for induction. Got all my shots and everything. That's fun, getting your shots. I can remember standing in line, and a fellow on each side with a needle going to go into your arm. The one fellow did it all right. The other fellow on the other side bent the needle and put a scratch all the way down my arm. And he says, "We'll try that again." I said, "Not the same way again, I hope." Went shipped down to Fort Dix. Went to Fort Dix for my training. Not to Fort Dix, excuse me. Getting confused here in my old age. Went to Camp Crofts, South Carolina, and took my basic training there. A few things about basic training. They say the Marines are tough, and they say that the drill sergeants are tough. The one sergeant that we had that was in charge of us had been in combat, and they would send him back for training because he got wounded. And the times that he had his shirts off, you could see bullet scars all around on his chest and back. He was a tough fella, I remember. I can't remember his name, but he was not tall, but he was about 5 feet wide, no fat at all. And when he said something, you did it, because the first time he introduced himself and everything, and then we went to get up in the morning, and there was one malingerer that stayed in his cot. The sergeant walked in. He says, "You getting up?" And the guy didn't make any noise at all. So he reached over, grabbed the edge of the cot, and flipped it right over on top of the fella. Which, that fella never stayed in bed again. Just rambling on here, some of the interesting things that happened in training, well, to me at least. I always was interested in Indian relics and things, and we'd be marching out to go to rifle range or something, and I'd see a washed out portion of the road on the side, a lot of clay down there and everything, and she'd spot some Indian relics in it. I'd walk over and catch hell from the sergeant for getting out of line and picking the things up. I did pretty well on all the weapons, but not really good. The best I did was with the M1. I made expert on the M1 rifle, having never had anything but .22 rifle training and BB guns. But I took high for the company, which pleased me, and I liked that Garand very well. We had all kinds of trainings with different weapons and things. As everybody knows, they give you in the Army. Good training, though. One fellow that was with us was Joe Douglas. It was a friend of mine. He came from Scully Square in Boston, 37 years old. He enlisted, had 2 kids. I said, Joe, why the hell did you enlist? He said, what am I going to tell my kids I did during the war? Well, he was pretty good. He was tough. Well, going under infiltration range in the rain with our guns under the sand, machine guns firing over us. And I heard him say, oh my God, oh gosh, oh gosh. I said, Joe, what's the matter? You hit or something? He says, no. He says, I want a beer. So he was a character, but he was good. He was kind of like a mentor to me all through this stuff. Another interesting thing happened in training. We were on throwing grenades, practicing, throwing live grenades over a mound, and then we'd crouch down behind. Had a little fox terrier that would follow us all the time around. Hated civilians, but he liked the army. When the civilians would come to go into the PX, why, he'd go after them. Well, he was with us on this one grenade job that we had there. And we threw the first grenade and he chased it. Went right up, got his nose very close to it. The thing blew up, didn't touch him at all. The shrapnel and stuff must have gone right over his head or something. He came back shaking his head, but he didn't chase another one. There's a lot of things I could tell about training, but I was, after 6 weeks training, basic, I was sent, picked out and sent to radio school. Got to radio school, and the first day I was there, I didn't even unpack my barracks bag. Something happened in Europe, so we had to go right back again. I took the final 6 weeks of training of basic as a rifleman and combat infantryman. Went from there home for a week. Had a week's leave, which was good. And then got on the train to go to, I can't even remember which debarkation area it was at the time. But my mother, this is an aside, my mother at the time said that after I left, she says it was the only time she saw my dad cry. And that's because he'd been a combat engineer in World War I. So he knew what the score was. On the Queen Mary here, of course, before going overseas, and then while we were at the camp and all, they issued all kinds of condoms. You had a great many of those. So there was a great many guys with condoms, all kinds on there, and they blew them up as balloons and let them fly in the air when we left there. Now, I'm no sailor at all, and as I say, there was 15,000 on this Queen Mary. They had 2 mess calls a day. I made the first one, and I was completely and utterly disabled for the next 5 days because I was sick as a dog. We were going North Atlantic in the wintertime, and really high seas, and the flying bridge on each side of the Queen Mary would roll, and you could look, and almost the edge of the Queen Mary's flying bridge looked like it would touch the water on one side, then over on the other side. And I even saw some sailors getting sick. We were supposed not to go out on the deck at all because the weather was so bad, and they were zigzagging as well to avoid subs, so there wasn't much danger at that particular time for subs. And I defied them, and I went out and I hung on to the railing because I was so sick. I didn't care if I was swept overboard or not. My total meal for the 5 days going across, and it was a quick crossing, that was a case of arrowroot biscuits that Joe Bedugnas had gone down to the PX and got me, and lemon pop. That's what I had for the full 5 days. We ended up in Glasgow, Scotland, and the port there couldn't accept the Queen Mary at the docks. It was too big or something, so we had to ferry off of it. We ferried off in boats and landed, as I say, in Glasgow, went right over to the train station by the, I think it was the Salvation Army or one of those ladies. They all handed us out box lunches. We got right onto a train, went into the train, took the train from there to Southampton, England in one well swoop. Stayed down in Southampton, England till they got some canal ferry boats, or not canal, channel ferry boats ready for us. And then we ferried across on a nice moonlit night, and I did deck guard. I don't know what the hell I could have done as a deck guard if planes had come over or something. But we made it. They said, boy, you'll be seasick on this, but the channel was just as smooth as glass going across. Landed in Le Havre, which was pretty well beat up at the time, and took our full field packs and barracks bags and everything and walked through Le Havre with the little kids there saying, haven't Sie Zigaretten for, or no, in French they were speaking at that time, have a cigarette for my sister, cigarette for my papa, cigarette for mama, which we kind of ignored. Got up to a big cliff there in Le Havre, and had to, with all our gear and everything, had to walk up this cliff. I don't know. I was stronger in those days. Got there, stationed in tents for just a short while. Joe Bedugnas mothering us by keeping the fire going in the pyramid tents. And then we were sent to Charleville, France. That was a depot for people, replacement depot for troops. There in Charleville, they were waiting to find out which outfit we should be sent to. So they gave us about 3 or 4 days training. I trained again on the BAR, which I couldn't hit much with the rifle, pretty good, and some other things. We were stationed in a former girls' school, and right across from us, from the girls' school, was a big building, big brick building, with women hanging out of the windows, yelling at the GIs, saying hi, 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 and I wondered what the heck was that. I says, is that where the girls' school people have been moved to? They said, no, keep away from there, that's a VD hospital. So I don't know if it was or not, or if they were just warning us to stay away from the women. So from Charleville, they said, well, get ready, boys, we're sending you someplace else. So we get out, and we get on trains. Now, my dad had talked about 40 and 8 boxcars, and it's supposed to be 40 horses and 8 men. Well, I think it was more 40 Shetland ponies and 8 midgets or something, because they weren't very big. And we went a while in the 40 and 8 boxcars and got out one night, and I have no idea where we were. And I remember getting something in my eye, like lye or something from there, and I couldn't see getting out. And everybody was moving, and I had to call to Joe. I says, Joe, help me. I says, I can't see. So it took about, I don't know how long. I don't know what, they cleaned the boxcars with something or other, but that was bad. And then we got on trucks, and we moved Lord knows where, and joined service company of the 101st Infantry, 26th Division, of the Third Army, Patton's group. Now, we were utterly confused all the time here. It wasn't really anticipation, it was wondering where the heck we were going and what the hell we were doing. So we joined service company, and service company is just behind the combat troops all the time. They're the ones that bring the hot food up and that sort of thing. And so we were with them just a short while, and then they said, well, you're going up, boys. So they took about 3 of us, I guess, and to go to one place. And we went up to this farmhouse that was behind the lines a ways. And I'm trying to remember now just how it worked out. We introduced ourselves to the captain properly, as we were supposed to. And he says, okay, we'll assign you in just a minute. And then he got a phone call. And he said, oh, yeah, that bad? Okay. Put the phone down. He says, you fellas go back with service company for a little while. They were going into a brand new attack, and they had no chance to break us in with our group or anything. So they wanted to get us oriented a little bit before we had to go right in. So we went back with service company for a couple of days, and then came back and joined the outfit after they'd had a little bit of a skirmish, a little more than a skirmish. And so they assigned us to our squads and all, however we would be. And they said, well, you're the tallest fella coming in here. Here's the Browning automatic rifle for you. Take care of it. The Browning automatic rifleman just got cut in half with a burp gun. So that made me feel good. And by the way, I couldn't shoot the BAR worth the damn. So I took the thing all apart, cleaned all the hay and the twigs and the dirt and everything out of it, and straightened it out best I could. And then they got us organized in our squad. I was with 3rd Squad, Sergeant Andy Ochtemeyer, and then we had Sergeant Roy Hollis with us as well. We had a mixed group. It was like you see in the movies. I mean, you'd think, well, it was all one kind, all the other. You'd think if they had a Jewish boy here and a Hawaiian boy here, that's a bunch of baloney. We had 2 Hawaiian boys with us, 3 guys from the South. Who else? Trying to think now. We had a Jewish fellow, but he was in our platoon, but not in our squad. We had to watch him awful close, because he would kill anybody, any civilians or anything. So, and you can't blame him because he had relatives over there. But I got familiar with my weapon, which I didn't like. As I say, the Garand was the best gun as far as I was concerned for that kind of stuff. So, what can I tell you now? A little bit here and a little bit there. We were organized, our particular platoon and our particular company was a lot like Brant's Volunteers, actually, because the main force generally would go into the main town or anything, and we were clearing on the outskirts. They'd send our platoon to check and see if there was German soldiers in one town or our company, and it was like clearing on the outskirts like that. You say when you're, this is just, I'll interject this stuff on and off because I just think about it. You say they make you macho when you're in the training. And I don't care if it's the Marines, the Army, or any of them. If you get the training, boy, you're invincible. You really know how to kill people and that sort of thing. But I'll tell you what takes the macho out of it is when you first go in And like I first went in with the squad, and we're going into this town where there's been a little battle, and they're on the outskirts, the Germans are on the other side. We're going in, and we round the corner of a building, and there's a Jeep with a GI laying off the side, laying over the side of it, and 2 GIs laying on the ground. And that takes the macho right out of you. And particularly when the one fellow that was in our squad says, "Oh my God." I said, "What?" He says, "That's the fellow I was with in training." Now, as BAR man, Browning automatic rifleman, I was the automatic rifle for the squad. Each squad had a BAR. Squad was supposed to be 12 men. BAR man, 2 scouts, and the rest of them were riflemen spread around, and they generally would protect you. As an aside to that, when I wrote my mother back home saying I was BAR man, she had gone to a military show after that in the armory, and she wanted to know where the BAR was. So they said, "Oh, there's the fellow with the one over here." So she went over, and he says, "You're interested in the BAR?" "Oh, yeah." He says, "Well, that's a squad weapon. Fires 20 rounds from each magazine. And the Germans always try to get the automatic, kill the automatic." And she says, "My son is a BAR." "Oh, well, it's not that bad," you know. He tried to make up for it. But BAR, fully equipped weapon, was 21 pounds of weight compared to about 8 pounds of the regular Army rifle. Generally had a bipod on it, and the thing that you hooked over your shoulder, and all of that was off of this one. I had a sling that I used most of the time with it. But then you carried 12 magazines. Each one weighed 1.5 pounds, so you see the weight of that. Plus you had bandoliers of M1 cartridges strung over you like a Mexican bandit. And then you had grenades on the side, usually fragmentation grenades and white phosphorus grenades. And what else? Well, you had your light field pack and whatever equipment that you wanted to carry with you. Other than that, I always carried some kind of a trench knife. They didn't issue me one. They were supposed to issue me an M3 trench, so I carried a Moroccan dagger I had with me and used that. But it was weight. I always got rid of the white phosphorus grenades. I didn't mind them shooting at me with fragmentation grenades on, but the white phosphorus, I hated to think of one of those things going off next to me and burning the hell out of me. Because that stuff, when it burns, it gets into your skin or all, and the only way to stop it is to pour water over it and then dig out the fragments. So I always used to dump them in every bushes I walked by. Nobody knew it, but I got rid of them. And after we got around the guys there that were laid out, and we got over our initial shock, which I don't know if nobody picked them up anyway yet. And we had a little hassle chasing the Germans out of the other side of the town there, and I don't want to go in too much into that. Got to one bridge that had been set to go off by the Germans, and we were crossing it, and you look around and you see all the explosives hanging on the bridge there, which gives you kind of a queasy feeling. But there was a smoke screen at the time, so colored troops were putting down smoke screen for us. After a little bit of to-do and that sort of thing, we got to cross the Rhine River. We didn't cross that famous one at Remagen. We crossed that pontoon bridge a little bit south of there. Went across in trucks, believe it or not, the same day Patton went across. And one of my squad, actually, Boudreau, he was a big French-Canadian guy. He says, well, I hear that General Patton's going to piss in the Rhine. He says, I'm going to beat him to it. And he did. He whipped out and took a leak when we were stuck on that pontoon bridge in there. We got across, and I think he came across later. And later on in the day, or the next day, the remnants of the German Air Force came through and took out all those afterwards. So, mainly, can't think of what to tell too much, except a few skirmishes here and there, a few clearing outs around main towns, and the one incident, we were going through a park-like place, and there was a little pavilion there in the park. We were awful careful because we didn't know if it was a fortified pavilion or what, so we circled around it, got up close. It was boarded up, but on the sign on the outside it says, "Drink Coca-Cola." And there was a bottle of Coca-Cola there, it said. Another time we came over we were high on a ridge looking across the valley of the town, and it was getting towards late in the day. We got in to the edge of this town, and there was a woman taking clothes off the line with their backs to us. And we yelled at her, says, "Deutsche Soldaten, diese Stadt?" She turned around. She says, "Why, you're Americans." In perfect English, she says, "I've been waiting for you. I heard you were coming." She says, "Come on into the house." It was just our squad there, you know. We didn't know, come into the house. We didn't know who was around. But she said, "No, the Germans all left. The soldiers all left on us." But she spoke better English than I did, actually. I forget just where I was, but speaking about packs, light field packs, full field packs, and that sort of thing. Mainly when we started out, we had a gas mask, of course, which was thrown away. And light field pack as a rule for us, and our blankets were left back with service company, and sometimes they'd bring them up to us. But we got in this one little skirmish in this town, and I had a light field pack on my back. And we're going around this group of houses, and there's some bushes off to the one side, and a stone fence on the other side, and then we're taking some machine gun fire coming in. So I ducked through the bushes there, and I can hear the machine gun fire coming in because you hear it snapping by you. And it's snapping by me in the bushes, and I'm trying to get out, and I get my field pack caught in the bushes. So that field pack is probably still in those bushes because I hooked out of those and scooted out of there as fast as I could. But that's just a little aside. After that, I carried an old ammo bag that I had on the side, that I carried on the side of me, slung over one shoulder. And that's where I carried my rations for the day, or any knives that I picked up, because I was a nut for knives and guns and everything in those days too as well. You mentioned you wanted to hear the story about the time I almost killed myself. Well, that's funny. And we were at the edge of a town, and it was like a little valley before us, and we were stationed in this house just up on the rise above this valley, looking down into the valley. And there was only I think 7 of us in the squad at that time, possibly 8, because some had been taken out for various reasons. One guy had foot trouble. And so I'm standing there with the sergeant looking off down this valley, and around the corner of a ridge like comes marching this group of German soldiers. Now I always say a company of soldiers, and by that I don't mean a full company like 112 or something. It was at least a full platoon, I would say. And they're marching around that corner of that, coming towards us through this valley. And I said, Sarge, what the hell are we going to do on this? He called to the guys in the house, because they didn't see us yet. And I think we had 4 guys, 5, 6 guys there, maybe at the most. We sent one back to the company headquarters in town. And we sent 2 off to the one side around the edge of this valley and 2 off to the other side around the edge of the valley, both armed with regular Garands. And Sarge and I stood at the top of the bridge there, looking down on these soldiers coming towards us. And he says, you know any German? I says, a little bit, yeah. I look down, and as they get fairly up to where they were in hailing range, I yelled down, I says, Hände hoch, Waffen niederlegen. In other words, throw up your hands and throw down your guns. And they looked up, and they looked around, they looked back, they jabbered with each other. I yelled it again, Hände hoch, Waffen niederlegen. They're talking back and forth to themselves, and all of a sudden they turned around, the whole group ran. They ran, and I said, Sarge, you want to let me have, shall I let him have it? Shall I let him have it? He said, for God's sakes, no, don't start anything. He says they might have thought, well, the reason they ran, they might have thought we had them zeroed in with mortars and had guys on each side they were in a bad position. But actually we had at the most 6 guys there against easy 40, I would say. Easy 40. And I was so relieved, I stuck my BAR down on the ground, leaned over it, and I don't know what happened, but something caught in the trigger, and it fires from an open bolt, and the bolt went swoosh and jammed. That scared me more than the Germans did, I'll tell you. Now that gun had a habit of jamming once in a while. I know we were going to take this village one time, and we're walking along this mountain road actually, and from the left of us down the mountain blunder 2 German soldiers coming down the mountain. And Sarge yells to me, hey Ben, get those guys. So I swing up with a VAR, slush, slush. Sarge runs over, he says, what the hell is the matter with you? I says, not me, it's the damn gun's jammed again. He grabs it, slush, slush. Poo, 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 just as the lieutenant was walking by. Lieutenant says, who in hell are you trying to kill here? Yeah, you're lucky you didn't kill the lieutenant that time. That was good. Same track. While I'm on the track, I can tell about coming into this one little town. And most of the time when I was shooting, it was distance shooting for me, and you don't actually contact the people that the bullets contact or something. You see them, you're laying down fire someplace, you're laying down fire here, and you see the people after you walk by, some of them and everything. But this one incident, we were going to take this little town, or clear this little town. We're going down this nice little valley with a little stream behind it, beside it, and up ahead looks like a little mill or something. 2 fellas in civilian clothes come running out of the mill and jump on a motorcycle and start off. And Sarge says to the scouts ahead, he said, get them. So wham, 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 they fire, and the guys go off the motorcycle and onto the pavement. And I didn't fire at all at that time. I didn't need to. But we got up to those guys, and they were laying there, and I can always remember this. One guy was kind of raising his arm, saying, "Kamerad, kamerad," as he was laying there. And blood was coming out of him and coming out of the other fella, and it would go together in a stream and then join in one stream and float into the gutter there. I always remember that. You see other things at various times, but that's one thing that I particularly remember. And we got into that town, and the Germans had got warning by the shots, I guess, a little bit, and they started out the other, and we were firing at them and all, and it was getting along towards dusk, and one woman is in the window of her house beside us there, and she's lighting an oil lamp. Woodrow yells at her, "Put that out!" And she didn't think anything about it. He smashes the window, reaches in, and throws the lamp down. Another time we were going into a village, and they say peripheral damage from civilians and stuff, and our bazooka man saw movement in a cellar, and he put a round into that cellar, and it was all civilians. So I don't know how many, we just went on, we don't know how many of them got. Skipping around, another time we had to take a town, and a little town, and it was getting on towards dark. We had a little tank with us at that time, which was interesting. Usually we sometimes rode on them, and sometimes they'd follow us, or sometimes they wouldn't be around, but this tank went with our company to go after this town. So we got up to a spot in the road, cliff on one side, drop off on the other, and a big hole that the tank couldn't go over, so he had to stay there. So we went in, we cleared the town. There was not much action or anything there. By the time we got back, it was pitch dark. The tank had been taken out by a Panzerfaust, and the two guys had been, whoever had been in the crew had been killed. And I'm walking around there in the dark, not knowing what's going on, and I step off an embankment. I don't know how high it was, but I went down a roof. And I'm laying there, and somebody said, "Ben, where are you?" I said, "I'm down here." They said, "Are you hurt?" I says, "I don't know." But I managed to get up and move around, and the first thing I did was stuck my finger in the front of the BAR to make sure it didn't get plugged or something with dirt. But that was interesting. Another thing that I always regret. Came into this one town, and it's like a Y. We were the base of the Y and going in, and then there's two roads jutting off from that. And right there at the Y is a little fortification set up. It's a thing that's made out of makeshift stuff, whatever they had. And we were getting some fire out of that. And so we let them have it, and a little bit of hassle. All of a sudden the white flag comes up, and we cease fired, and out of there comes kids. They must be 12, 13 years old, in uniform, firing on us. And some of them didn't make it, and I always regretted that, but what the hell, they could kill you as well as anybody else, I guess. Yeah, a little story that was interesting. We were sent to check out this one town. Just our squad was sent, and there was about 8 in the squad at the time. And it was across a long field, and then there was a town there, a little town. And we're going across this town, spread out, not knowing if we're going to take fire or everything, going across the field rather. And we get to the town, and it's pretty clear and quiet, nothing going on there particularly, so we set up headquarters in their store there, the main store in town, which was nothing but like a general store. And it was pretty quiet, and one of the civilians came there, and he said they wanted to buy something from the store. So they came in, and they got whatever they wanted, and they tried to give us money. No, take it, go. So about 15, 20 minutes later, here's all the town coming at us. And I said, holy cats, we're going to get mobbed here or something? What is this? No, they were just after food and stuff, whatever was there. So we gave out everything free to the people. Oh, that was okay at the time. Didn't cost us anything. You want to say a typical day. With some guys, it was typical day sitting in the mud like in Italy or something and shooting all the time and being shot at and everything. Ours at the time was mostly moving and fast and shooting a little bit and skirmishing a little bit here, and you would seem to walk from dawn till you'd walk from dawn till late at night sometimes. And you'd end up like we did in one spot, and we heard artillery coming in. And the lieutenant and the sergeant gets underneath the blanket there with a flashlight trying to find out where the hell we were and give the coordinates, if it was our artillery, to them to say, ease off, we're here. And I guess they finally did find them, but find where we were and ease off on the artillery. 88s were, just to put an aside in, that was a pretty accurate weapon. They used them for anti-aircraft, and they used them for ground troops, and they used them against tanks and everything. And I've been under 88 fire doing guard duty one time. We always, when we take a town and we station people inside the houses, we're as well on the outside of the houses. And I was outside in the backyard, and I'll put this in. I'd just taken a leak next to the barn, and in comes an 88, shoo, boom, in the shrapnel, you know, and I'm right beside, right flat on the ground, right next to the barn. But that's the only one that came in. Another time we were going through an area, they said, we got on a truck, and they said, we're going to take you to through an area that hasn't been cleared yet, and over to this section, and then you go on from there. So we're going through this area that hadn't been cleared yet, kind of a nice open valley. A round comes in ahead of us, boom, blows up. A round comes in the back of us, boom, and blows up. We're out of that truck and away because we knew the next one was getting the truck. Nothing came in. I don't know if they ran out of ammunition or what, but. And we take another town, go in, we shag the Germans out of the town, and the lieutenant says, my God, we took the wrong place. He backs out, we back out, we go up on the hill, and he's trying to figure out where we are, and I hear this, woo, 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 woo. And I'm up looking around. I said, what the hell? They said, get down, you damn fool, it's Neville weapons. They were those multiple rockets, you know, where they have, it looks like a bunch of tubes. The Germans had them, we had them, Russians had them. And they were coming in. And they hit the town just where we had been. Boom, 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 boom. But I learned what they sounded like anyway. It's the weirdest sound, because once the charge is out, why, it's hollow in the back and it causes that sound. I don't know how much of this combat junk you want to hear. I can tell you the end of the thing and then some stuff on afterwards if you want.
Nope, keep going.
Keep going. Well, let's see. We got up into... well, towards the end of the very end of the war there, we got up into the Austrian-German border there, and we were traveling at night in trucks. They were trucking us because they'd cleared this one area, and we were going to go up into Austria and then cut over into Czechoslovakia. And it was night, and it was raining and sleeting and cold and miserable. And the truck ahead of us turned over with all the GIs in it and everything. Nobody was hurt, though. I don't know why not. But we got out and we stayed until they got straightened out, stayed in a little house there that had one of these beautiful tile stoves. And boy, was that nice to hunker up against. And then, I may as well end the war part of the narration. We got up into Czechoslovakia and knew the war was just about ending and hoping we wouldn't get shot any time. This was in early May, like May 1st or something. We got up there and stopped in one little village there, and our other group went on to other villages, and our particular platoon was stationed in this one village. And the captain or lieutenant, I forget now, came along one time and he says, "Hey Ben, you want to take a ride with me?" "Oh, that's good, I'll take a ride, you know. I've been walking, I'll take a ride with you." So I got in, he says, "Bring your bar." So I brought the BAR, and I'll condense this a little. We started up this one road, came around a bend, and right smack in front of us, pointing at us, was a German anti-tank gun with a crew. He says, "Whoops." He says, "Wait a minute." And he went over, and walked up to him, talked to him for a little bit, come back, says, "Let's get the hell out of here." See, they knew it was just about the end of the war, but they were lucky. One of our other groups there got into a firefight with him like that. He says, "Wrong turn." So then we went down this other road. I says, "Where are we going anyway?" He says, "Well, I got to go talk to the remnants of this one Panzer division here. They're thinking of surrendering to us." Yeah, okay. Get over this rise and look down, and here's Tiger tank pointing towards us this way on either side of the road. The remnants of the, I don't know what it was, company division, I don't know what they were. There was all laid out there ahead of us. Drove down in, parked. He says, "I got to go talk to the officer here." And he goes off, and a couple of German soldiers come over to me. And he says, "Hey, have you got cigarettes?" You know, in English, one of them. I says, yeah, here you are. And we was talking a while. He says, "How long you been in, soldier? How old are you?" I says, "I'm just 18. I said, "How long you been in?" He says, I'm 26. I've been in all the time." And some of the other guy was. We bantered back and forth. He says, "When you going to get together with us and fight the Russians?" I says, "Me?" I says, "I don't know about you, but I've had enough of this. That's all." So lieutenant or captain, whatever he was at the time, comes back, gets in the Jeep and says, "Okay, let's go back to the group." We went back to the farmhouse then. Yeah, and we were there and waiting, I don't know for what at the time, and found out we were waiting for the surrender of this particular group. The officers, the head officer was supposed to come in and meet with our head officer, and they picked the farmhouse that was in, we were in, to have their meeting. So I'm sitting there, and this morning, it must have been around the 6th or 7th of May, something like that. And in comes these German officers, one of them a colonel or whatever the hell he was. I don't know what he was, but he was an officer. Good-looking guy, big fella, steel gray hair and all. And he came into the kitchen where I was sitting at the table, and "Oh, hello, soldier." He spoke in good English, you know. He says, "Where are you from?" I says, "I'm from Buffalo, New York." He says, "Oh, I was in Buffalo." He says, "I was there at Republic Steel." at times. And he sat and he talked with me for a long time. And he says, "What language do you prefer?" I says, "Oh, I kind of like Spanish." He says, "Well," he says, "I like French. I think that's a good language." And we were talking back and forth about all kinds of things. And I'm wondering, why the hell is this big officer talking to me? I'm just a buck private, not a buck private, I was private first class at the time. And then I got to thinking afterwards, and years afterwards, I says, he was doing like you do when you go into a dentist's office and you read a magazine, to take your mind off of what's coming up. You know, he knew he had to surrender, and he knew it was the end for him and everything, and he's just bantering back and forth to take his mind off it. It wasn't that he was interested in me at all, but I got to talk to some history there anyway. And then, of course, our officers come in and they chased us out, so then they settled that up. And just in the next town from us, our headquarters company, there was a couple of guys that were unloading an ammunition truck, and the thing blew up and they got killed that last day there. And then we set up a little prisoner of war camp with a machine gun at each corner, and it was like in an open field. They could set up whatever tents they want, and the officers had their trucks there and all. And wasn't much to that. Nobody wanted to go anyplace, except we were sitting in the kitchen one time there at the farmhouse, and one of our guys comes staggering in, and he had blood running down the side of his face. And we said, "What the hell happened to you?" He says, "I was up in the woods up there, up on the hill. A couple of German soldiers were walking through there, and I told them, I says, 'Come on, you got to go down to the camp here. You're ranging around free.' And they says, 'Oh yeah, we just got here. We'll come down with you.' And they jumped him. And one of them grabbed the M1, and the other one's wrestling with him. And this one of our troops, he reached around in the back of him where he had a German Luftwaffe dagger, pulled it off, pulled it around, and pulled it in the back of the guy that was wrestling with him. And that guy was out of commission. Well, the other guy tried to shoot him, but didn't know how to throw the safety off on the Garand. So he whacked him and took off. He comes running down, well, staggering down actually, and we called up the headquarters, and the captain says, "Get 3 men, 4 men, go up there and don't bring them back. Get those guys, don't bring them back." So I and 3 other guys went up, and we tracked to find out where he came from, and we found him. Found the one guy, didn't find the other, and he was laying there, "Comrade, comrade," you know, he was pretty badly wounded. And the guy said, "Well," said, "don't bring him back." So 3 of the guys got there with the Garands and emptied it into the guy's head. Now that's 8 times 3 into a guy's head, and you can imagine what that did with it. I've seen other things for that. They said, "Ben, why the hell didn't you shoot?" I says, "Why did I need to shoot?" I says, and if you'd emptied your guns and that other guy is running around with a Garand there, what's going to happen to you? So we tried to track the other guy, and we never did find him, but he was going east towards Russian territory, so he was a problem. He wasn't any problem anyway. Funny thing happened there. At least I thought it was funny myself. I've told the story. Some people look askance at me, but the peripheral guards came in and said that the officers and their women have gone. They've run away. I said, "What?" "Yeah, they run away." Well, we didn't even call the headquarters on this one. The sergeant says, "Go get them, Ben." The other guy. I said, why did they run away? Well, they thought the Russians were coming, which later on they did come through that territory. We had to move out. So we go down in the Mulder River. It's what they told me it was, whether it was a Mulder or not. Anyway, we used to fish in it with hand grenades, you know. And they were down there, these officers and their women. I'll tell you, they weren't underfed. They were all in the nude, in the river, looked like a herd of porpoise, going back and forth up in the river like that. A couple of the others were on the banks, but these big women, and the guys weren't too small either, but so he says, come on, back in, got them dressed. I'm 18 years old. I hadn't had my 19th birthday yet. And I'm herding these naked women and all into up. And we got them back. He said, Ruski coming. I said, the Russians aren't coming. I didn't know they were. We got them back in, and that was the end of that. And then we stayed there a while. I got a sad case of dysentery because I made the mistake of coming back from hunting up in the mountains there and going to the pump that was surrounded by manure piles and not taking a drink. I just rinsed my mouth out and spit it out because I didn't go to the... Boy, did I get dysentery. They were in the formation after that, giving out medals. General Paul was there and everything, and I collapsed in back of the formation. And the medic comes up to me, he says, what happened, Ben? I says, I've had dysentery so bad that... He says, come with me. He took me off to the side. He gave me a handful of pills, and I says, how often should I take them? He says, all at once. I didn't worry about dysentery or anything else for another couple of weeks. But then we were, then we thought, well, we'll be going home now. Well, the Japanese war was still going on. So we got in trucks and they drove us, and we said, geez, where are we going now? Well, we went to outskirts of Hammelburg, Germany, and set up a camp there to train to go to Japan. This must have been in July, latter part of June, July. We're training there. I had a snap there because when I was in high school, I knew I was going in the Army, so we got all kinds of books and training stuff on jiu-jitsu and judo and that sort of thing, and hand-to-hand combat. And I had put that down on my Army information when they induct you, I said, that's a hobby, and I said, herpetology and snakes are a hobby with mine and all, and they said, oh, you know where you're going, CBI. So they didn't, they sent me to Europe, but I got called up to headquarters the first day we set up with in Hammelburg, and I said, Private Benson reporting, sir. And he said to me, he says, Benson, he says, you're going to head up with the Hawaiian boys, you're going to do hand-to-hand combat training for the boys. So I had a snap there. I got with the Hawaiian boys, and we developed a little routine so we could... they could make me look good, and make each other look good, and then we'd put a little demonstration on, and then we'd go to getting the troops together in circles and teaching them hand-to-hand, and knife fighting, and weapons fighting, and how to kill a man with an entrenching tool, and all that kind of stuff, what you'd need for Japan. I used to like Hammelburg when I had the time off. We were in tents, and when we could read, we used to use dubbing cans and put a wick in a dubbing can and use it as a little oil lamp. But there's one thing I like to do at dusk, and is go out on the one hillside there and watch the one shepherd bringing his sheep back with sheepdogs, and how the dogs would work in through there. It was really something to watch. Yeah, we were we were moving pretty steady all the time, going from February and through March and April and into May. And a lot of people said you were there just for the cleanup and just mopping up. But as I say, if they were always running away, who was shooting at us? They must have had a pretty good rear guard at times. Stuff not politically correct and that sort of thing, and not supposed to be correct in Army and all, but this is just an aside that I throw back on here. We were in one area and we got a hold of an SS man. They'd captured him. And he looked rather inoffensive, but SS troops were hated by most of the guys. A lot of them had more combat than I had and had more killed than I had seen. And so this SS man was put in the truck with us, and the guys, two of the guys grabbed him, and they had a German newspaper, not a big one, one like you'd see at just a folded over sheet at the, like these throwaway or these scandal sheets they have at the checkouts. And they made him eat that newspaper. He had to eat it piece by piece and swallow it down. And then they took him out of the truck, and captain says, we don't want to take him with us. So they took him back, and you heard a shot, and that was it for him. Now this is an incident I forgot to put in, and that's when we had taken this town, and it had pretty much burning and everything, and at night I was on guard with a machine gun there, looking out of a barn and seeing all the shadows of the flames and everything, and looking down this road. And the next morning I got to go out on that road and build a little foxhole down there with my ammo bearer, who I forgot to mention was Portuguese. He was a tough little guy, Lenny Borges. He was good. But we had this foxhole on the side of the road down there, watching anything for anybody coming. And behind us up the road comes a lady, and she's carrying 2 plates, a German lady, and she had 2 chicken dinners with dumplings on them for us. That's a meal I'll never forget. We stole a lot of stuff from them. I saw Kuchen one time on a porch as we were going through a town, grabbed a Kuchen, and we went like nobody's business, and we started eating it, and they'd left all the pits and the cherries. And if we'd see a sausage or something, we'd take that too. One Nazi headquarters we got into in a little apartment house in the basement. They had butter, and they had eggs, and they had creme de menthe and creme de cocoa and all kinds of food, and boy did we have a feast there, because mostly when we were on the run like that we were carrying K ration or C ration, which is a story in itself. Well, I'll go back and talk a little bit about this. This isn't after the war, it's during the war, and we were forming up on this road to go across the hill into the next town to take the town. And imagine there was a few in there, but I'm sitting behind the platoon. Our platoon is behind me, and I'm sitting on the edge of the road with my feet in the ditch, and the other platoon is ahead of us. And they're forming up, and all of a sudden there's a tremendous explosion right in the middle of that platoon. And it looked like the whole platoon dropped. And somebody yelled, "Mortars!" And of course we're off each to the side of the road, and the medic, who I can't speak enough about, Dadabo, he was a great guy. He went in to see what he could do. And then all of a sudden they said, "Okay, clear, come back." And what had happened, somebody had was forming up and was getting a bazooka ready to fire, and they had tipped the barrel down And when they put the round in the back, somehow or another they didn't clip it in, and somehow or another the safety wasn't on right, and the round slid down and exploded right by the feet of all those men. Now, one fella had the side of his face blown off. Another fella had his foot mangled completely. And one fella, Atomic, who was always, for some reason or another, didn't like my guts. I don't know why, because I'm a likable guy, you know. But he seemed to just take a dislike to me. I asked him once, I said, Atomic, what do you got against me? He says, I just don't like you. So anyway, he got his. He was sitting by a tree, leaning up against a tree, and a piece of some type of shrapnel or metal went right smack clean through his heart. And I walked by him, and he didn't blink or anything. He was just sitting there with his eyes open and deader than a doornail. And that was just an accident. We lost more men then than we did going into the city. There's a little town, taking the town. Well, there's a thing about were you scared when you were in? Well, you're mostly scared all the time. That isn't the question. You're wondering what's coming up and all, but you can't think about it steady. But when you get into a fight and you're concentrating on the fight, you don't notice the fear the same until possibly afterwards or something. It's just you're set so on thinking what you're doing and who's ahead and who's on either side of you that you just don't have time to get scared. If you get scared, you're done. That's about all I can say about that. And that isn't saying anybody's a hero or anything. It's because all of you meant to being scared. I was never a hero. I hid my helmet as far in as I could get most of the time. We heard the war was over with Germany. We just felt tremendously relieved, completely relieved. Even though the one explosion that happened in the next town and killed 2 of our guys in ammunition trucks. That was headquarters company. And then some other fella got killed in a hassle at the end there too with the Germans. We were lucky when we faced the anti-tank gun. We didn't get blasted away. But tremendous relief, and we thought we were all going home, but we didn't. We were sent, as I say, to Hammelburg then. Now we were training, as I say, in Hammelburg to go to Japan, and that was to go against Japan proper, which we didn't like the idea much of, but we were still in the Army, so we do what we were told. And then in August came the atomic bomb. And you hear people nowadays saying they're sorry we dropped that bomb and it wouldn't have happened and they wouldn't have lost many. Well, don't kid yourself. We were sure happy they dropped that atomic bomb, both of them. And that was one of the best things that happened as far as we were concerned. And then we said, boy, we're going home now. And so we packed up all our stuff and we got on trucks and wait a minute, we aren't going towards the coast. We're going someplace else. So we ended up in Central Austria. Our company headquarters was, I think, called Weiher. Maybe in Germany or Austria they call it Weiher, I don't know. In the center of the Alps, kind of pretty. And our squad was sent to a little town a few kilometers out from Weiher. I don't even know the name of it. Could say Neudorf, but who knows. It had just a few houses and a guest house, and we were stationed in the guest house. And we were set up to do, each one of us did 2 hours guard duty a day on a road, dusty dirt road that came through from our territory through to Russian territory, which was up over the next ridge. Beyond a kind of a no man's land in between. And that was the best duty I ever had overseas. I said it was like a vacation because we had some German Army horses on there, 2 hours guard duty a day. The rest of the time was always our own, and I used to play Daniel Boone, going way up in the mountains, hunting all the time, and I hunted a lot of deer up there and got them for us to eat to supplement our rations, which weren't bad there. We had a big barrel of beer set out for us all the time. Sometimes we drank that in the morning instead of coffee, you know. And then they'd bring in pancakes. They'd have chocolate pancakes, lemon pancakes, and things that they would bring in. And I've had a glass of beer and pancakes for breakfast already. But none of us got inebriated on any of the stuff. It was probably 3.2 or something, and we didn't overdo it anyway. But I had a lot of fun in the mountains there and killed a lot of deer. And the deer, the people at the guest house, Mama and Papa Kronsteiner there, would fix us up meals out of it. We'd have schnitzel made out of the steaks from the deer, things like that, and set up with German potato salad, of course, and pickled beets and the whole works. It was fun. I had fun there in that place. Our sergeant had a relaxing time. One sergeant that we had was from the south, and he and another sergeant, I don't know where they managed to get it. Well, yeah, we did. We get liquor rations every once in a while. And they got schnobbled on the liquor rations, and they went on 2 of the horses, went in and shot up the town of Wire. He lost his stripes for that, but otherwise he didn't shoot anybody. He was just shooting signs and things. Lost some stripes for that, but that's about all that happened. But that was a beautiful little valley we were set in. The people were nice. We were there at Christmas time. And ahead of time, before Christmas, we all saved our PX rations of cigarettes and cigars and chocolate, the different kinds of candy that we could get and things. And Sergeant got himself some kind of a Santa Claus uniform, whatever they have over there for Santa Claus, and he dressed up as Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. We invited all the kids from the village, which weren't many, and all the grown-ups there, and we gave out presents of chocolate and everything, and they sang German Christmas, or Austrian and German Christmas carols. It was a Christmas that I remember most in my life, and had a real tree inside with the candles on it in there. It was good. Had an incident. Every so often we'd have to go up and chase away the Russians from the district Bauer was up in the no man's land. District farmer. He was quite a big farmer. Had 2 daughters that were nice, but they both had boyfriends, so they didn't interest us much. But they had a beautiful singing voice, and we'd go up there to visit, and they'd bring out the cheese and the must, which is hard cider, and sometimes schnapps. And then they'd have the sing fest where they'd play the zither and sing and yodel and all. It was really beautiful. Other times we had to go up there. One of the displaced persons who was working for the farmer would come running down, "Ruskies come, Ruskies come, Ruskies come." So the Russians that were stationed on the other side of the ridge, they'd come over and they'd try to get whiskey or schnapps rather, and anything else they could find from the people. And we'd hop on our horses, 2 of us would, go up there like the cavalry coming to the rescue and chase the Russians out. One day I go up there with Bob Davis, and I got the old slow nag. It was huffing and puffing, and finally it got up to where I could hear what was going on, and I heard shots. Bam, 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 bam. I ride up, and there's Bob. He's like blowing into the end of his gun like the old West did. "That Russian ain't coming back." I said, "What, you didn't kill him?" "No," he says, "I just peppered all around him to chase him away." One time we got up there, and there was There was about 4 of them there with these little Russian Tommy guns. And I had come up, I only had my hunting knife on me, and I forget who was, I think Davis was with me then too. And he had a Garand with him, so I said, well, I'm protected. And I walked up, and they're giving a hard time to the people there, and the farmer and everything, the Russians are, you know. And one DP, he gets brave because we're with him, you know, and he walks up to the guy and he starts giving him the hassle. And the Russian swings the gun around, sticks it right in his stomach. And I, foolish, I wasn't brave or anything, I just didn't think. I walked up, knocked the gun aside, you know, he could have shot me. I wasn't even thinking, you know. I says, look, I says, you're all under arrest. There's 2 of us, they all got Tommy guns, or not Tommy guns, but automatic weapons. And I'm there with a hunting knife on my side, and Davis has got the Garand. They laughed, oh, ho, 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 okay, because they could understand English. The one did, okay, bye, and they went, you know. And I'm riding back with Bob, and he says, what did you think of knocking that gun away? I says, I didn't think, I just walked up and did it. I says, you got the Garand there. He says, Ben, I didn't have any ammo with me. Oh, I said, we had to go up and try to identify them. They got the captain. We sent the report back to the captain, and he come up on the Jeep, and he says, well, let's ride over, you and Bob will go over there and see. So we drove over and over the ridge and down into their camp. And I'll tell you, that was the wildest looking camp. They looked like all Mongolians, you know, and they had bottles all over the place. And they were shooting around and everything, and the one guy I happened to see, he had a necked cartridge that he was shooting in a gun that wasn't for a neck cartridge, and expanding the cartridges. But I'll tell you, when that officer spoke to him, they all, right in line, right up and everything, they said, you guys now identify who it was. Well, they all looked alike to us, and I wouldn't have told on them anyway, you know. So I'm walking back and forth. I said, I can't spot him. Bob says, I can't either. I winked at one guy that I thought was, you know. And so then we're going to go, and the Russian officer there says, oh, no, stay, schnapps, vodka. No, we can't do that. We got to get going. So we went back, but that was something. That was a wild camp. It looked like politically correct, it looked like a wild Indian camp in those days, you know, way back. Yeah, so I enjoyed my stay there. It was like a rest after the other stuff that we went through. But from there, we were told to get on trucks again after being there about 6 months. Maybe, not quite, probably. We got on trucks and we said, oh boy, we're going home. Well, we got as far as Passau, Germany, and I was put with the military police there in Passau, Germany. On railway military police, our outfit was. And that was the hardest job I had outside of combat. It seemed like nothing. I mean, you see a military policeman riding around in a Jeep or something. We had to guard the trains going from Passau to Linz, Austria, because Passau's right on the border there. It's a Dreifluss town, Three Rivers town. 3 rivers come together there, the Danube, which, by the way, isn't blue. It's coffee colored there, without much cream in it, too. But we would take the train. Well, they'd wake us up any time of the night or day, and we'd get out like maybe 2 in the morning. I'd come out, and we'd have to check. Being train commander, I was corporal then, and we'd have to check all the seals on the boxcars because they were looting at times there and that sort of thing. And then people were trying to get across the border to escape Nazis and stuff like that, would try to get under the trains and stuff. So we'd go out and we'd check all the every one of the seals and all. And then get ready to go on the train, and the train would pull out, and then we'd stop at the Inns River crossing. And then they'd examine all the trains underneath to make sure nobody was going across into Austria. Then we'd get across there, and every time we stopped, got a hot box or something, we'd have to get out and guard the train all on either side to make sure nobody was monkeying around with it or anything. And it was interesting, but it was tedious. You'd get down to Linz, you'd turn around, you'd come back. You'd pick up another train, you'd turn around, and you'd go out. Maybe you'd get to sleep on the train, but most of the time we were riding with the engineer and the fireman. And how much room have you got in those little engines, you know? Sometimes there was an empty boxcar we could sit in and dangle our feet and watch the countryside, but it was slow because it's not far, but it would take us a long time to go. Because any time a special train would come by, they'd have to pull it on the siding. So I wasn't getting much sleep there at all. And the one time, I just got back after one of the tours, and I says, well, I'll wash up. And they were having a party down in the hotel dining room there. And I said, well, I'll go down for a little while. Maybe I can get a hold of Margaret Lodi, who was a friend of mine over there. And we'll spend some time at that, and then I'll go up and get some sleep. Got down to the party, and I'm sitting there. I had one little small brandy or something, and Lodi's there and all. And I see the guy that's supposed to take the next train out after I'm half dead, and he's there, and he is really putting them down, you know. I walked over to him, I said, hey, I says, watch yourself. I says, you got to take that train out, and the next train, and if I got to take it out, I'm going to talk to you about it. And don't worry, I'll be fine. So, come to where I wanted to go upstairs and finally get some shut-eye. And I'm walking up, and this guy is like this. And I walked over to him, and I grabbed him by the front, and I felt somebody grab me by the shoulder and spin me around up against the wall. No Ben. He can't say anything to me. The Sarge grabbed him. Boom! 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 And that guy just went, slid right down on the floor. And he looked at the guy, he says, now you say anything about that to anybody. So I had to take the train out that night, and no sleep or anything, you know. And from Passau, and a few little minor adventures in Passau, then finally one day they said, well, you're moving out. And I didn't like leaving Lodi much, but I figured I'd make contact with her later by mail and that sort of thing. And then we went up to Bremerhaven, Germany, where we waited to get on the boats returning us home there. And one thing I can remember about Bremerhaven, it was in the summer, in July, hot, but I went up on the dike there in the river by Bremerhaven, laid out on the dike about all afternoon one time, and walked back down into the barracks, and the guy looked at me and he says, holy mackerel, are you going to hurt tonight? I was beat red all over practically. So I says, okay. I got out Army burn ointment and I smeared myself all up with that, and I was fine except for peeling for about the next 2 months. I was peeling. But I remember Bremerhaven too, when you went to get your mess there, the eats, why you'd come out with your kit and there'd be bees all over everything you were eating. You had to shove them all off. Nobody got bit that I know of, but they were all over the place. Then we got on our ship there to come home, which we were glad to do. And I thought, boy, I'm going to be seasick the whole way. but it was the Mahanoy City Victory, I think they call it, a victory ship. And the ocean was like glass almost all the way back. It didn't bother me at all. Yeah, we got back and got to I can't remember which camp we were at, but I know I had to do KP duty, latrine duty on the ship coming back, and I started to clean up with the rest of the guys and feeling like I was almost a civilian now, and an officer come by, he says, "What are you doing the work? Tell them what to do, you're a corporal." I didn't feel much like a corporal. And then we got in, and the only duty I can remember before we got released was doing KP one night, and that was when all the bakery trucks came in. We got to unload the bakery trucks and eat as much as we could on this stuff. But they gave us our orientation and talking to us about what we wanted to do after the war and that sort of thing, and then put us on the train with a little pay, and we got home, and I got home in the middle of the night on the New York Central, I guess it was. Walked up to the house. My folks were living on Carmel Road then in Buffalo, and there was a big banner over the top saying, "Welcome home, Bill." So that's as much as I can remember on that. A lot of stuff I forgot. A lot of stuff I didn't say, and some stuff purposely, and some stuff just from old age I forgot. The combat outfit was private first class, and it was 101st Infantry of the 26th Division, and let me think, yeah, 101st Infantry, yeah, and that's about it, I guess.